Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of the Greens on the Road Transport Legislation Amendment Penalties and Other Sanctions Bill and make it clear from the outset that the Greens oppose this piece of legislation. This bill changes the system for issuing penalties for drink driving and drug presence offences to allow for the immediate issuing of penalty notices instead of requiring matters to proceed through the court. There will still theoretically be a choice for people or a person to have their matter dealt with by the court, though of course many or most are unlikely to recognise this option, and it is very unlikely that this will produce a fairer outcome for them. The bill also seeks to increase penalties for drug presence offences, drink driving offences, and significantly increases penalties for the climbing of the Harbour Bridge. To turn first of all to the issues around the issuing of penalties, the Greens strongly oppose this idea. It is yet another piece of legislation that we are seeing designed to appeal to the tabloid media and that will have really little impact on road safety. The fact that the provisions relating to drug driving relate to the discredited presence offence are very telling. This offence does not require a driver to be substantially impaired or impaired at all, but merely to have the smallest trace presence of one of 4 kinds of drugs in their system. My Greens colleague in the other place, David Shoebridge, has raised concerns about these measures many times before, and he is not alone in the concerns that raised as he has travelled around the state meeting with communities, particularly in regional areas, in relation to the impact that has and the fear that they have as a result of these unfair situations. Not only that, but the courts have agreed. Many magistrates on the record are criticising this law, which they believe requires them to apply and the unjust and disproportionate outcomes that they see it creates in the court system, in the justice system. The Minister refers in her second reading speech to the fact that 30 to 50% of those who are currently appearing before the courts for drug driving or drink driving offences do not receive a guilty finding and associated penalty as justification, and the Minister uses this as a justification for instead requiring police officers to issue spot fines. From the second reading speech, and I quote, the Minister says, over the 3-year period ending June 2017, 56% of low-range drink driving first offences resulted in a non-conviction order in the court, typically a Section 10. Similarly, 36% of first offences for driving with the presence of an illicit drug resulted in a non-conviction. This means that offenders who are proven to have committed an offence do not lose their licence. End quote. The fact that the courts, when considering all the facts of a case or a circumstance, find that a Section 10 is a more just outcome in the circumstances is not something that the Minister or the Liberals or the Nationals should be coming in here trying to circumvent. Unless the objective here is to simply secure more revenue, more convictions, and impose the loss of licence on more people, then it is unacceptable to circumvent the process where a justice system, where a magistrate, where a court is determining that the most just outcome for that individual, when considering all the matters of the case before them, believe that a Section 10 is the most just outcome. It is not okay for the Minister to be coming here and circumventing that justice system and the decision of that court. It is likely to cause far more people to lose their licence, and we know that so many people rely on their licence to be able to participate in their lives, to be able to earn their livelihood, to be able to keep their jobs and maintain their jobs, and to be able to deliver on their family responsibilities. Many of these people, out of desperation to be able to continue paying their rent, to continue putting food on their table, to continue getting their kids to school and to keep their jobs, we know will risk further criminal sanctions by driving without a licence, because at the end of the day, those things will be a higher priority. Now, that is not the solution we want in this situation. It will have no measurable impact on road safety to introduce this. It further empowers the police to be able to impose these measures, and the evidence is clear in other jurisdictions that a scheme like this will likely increase reoffending and cause issues to be not looked at in a holistic manner, as with the court system can do. I want to turn briefly now to talk about the increased penalties for climbing on the Harbour Bridge. and say that it is beyond belief that we are here increasing penalties for something like this. We know that actually in the cases where there is disruption, and I note that the Minister does refer to the disruption that can occur in relation to people climbing on the bridge, these tend to be people with extreme mental health conditions. People do not disrupt traffic on the Harbour Bridge and climb the Harbour Bridge unless they are seriously suffering from extreme mental health conditions. The idea to think in recent times that those people in those traumatic circumstances would somehow be deterred from taking this action because of an extremely large fine, a situation where someone in severe mental stress, suggesting that massively increasing the fines will have some deterrent, is completely nonsensical. In addition to that, it is absolutely lacking in compassion that someone that finds themselves in that kind of severe mental health distress would then find themselves also slammed with a massive and extreme fine as a result of their trauma and their actions. I appreciate that disruptions occur as a result of that, but we need to recognise the fact that in recent times the disruption that has occurred has involved people in severe mental distress. Those people should be getting support from this government. We shouldn't be defunding mental health services. We should be providing them with a safe, secure place to live and adequate health services. We should not be trying to deter them from the extreme acts that they may take as a result of this failure of this Liberals and national government to deliver on providing adequate mental health services for our community. The Greens oppose this bill. We reject it, and we believe that it should not be passed. It is inappropriate to the idea of saying that we are trying to circumvent the justice system, to circumvent the ability for the courts to assess all of the merits of the case, and we absolutely reject the idea of increasing in such an extreme way the penalties for people climbing on the Harbour Bridge.